Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the House List Podcast. My name is Peter Agustin. I am the producer and the host of this show. It's my weekly podcast. Thank you for tuning in. I have a great episode for you that I just recorded, and I think you're going to dig it. It's an incredibly interesting conversation with a really unique guy that I, prior to this, had really no knowledge of his life or really career path. I basically stumbled across his name looking up a show at a concert venue, a music venue here in New York City in Brooklyn. And I said, "What's up with this guy's name?" Because I feel like maybe I had heard or seen his name somewhere, and I was like, "I'm just gonna look this dude up and see what he's all about." And that is my guest on today's show, Malik Abdul-Rahmaan. And I basically started a conversation with him, knowing very little. He came through to the house here in Brooklyn, and we just had a really cool chat, which winded down the ever curvy path of anyone's life. And it turns out he's the same age as I, and so I could draw some similarities there. But I was familiar with some of the record labels he had worked with, or some of the people. We have some mutual friends in common as well. But I had basically stumbled across an album that he put out last month in May, called Field Research Malaysia, which is basically an instrumental, composition-based, sample-heavy album that he did with records and field recordings of a trip he had gone on to traveling around Malaysia. So records that he dug and found there, as well as field recordings. So I had discovered this when I first saw his name, and I've been digging in on that. And a little snippet of that is what we open the show with today. And that's about all I knew. And I was familiar with the label, which is a Brooklyn-based label that does a lot of tapes and vinyl and some really cool beat-oriented stuff called Paxio Records. So if you're not familiar with that label at all, start by checking them out. And then I'm hoping by the end of this conversation, if you aren't already familiar with Malik Abdul-Rahmaan, then definitely seek out his music. I think there's a good cross-section of people that are going to listen to this that already know and are a fan of his. And as we went to talk further along the conversation, I could see the various sort of connective tissue, if you will, between our different worlds in music and stuff. And he had worked at A1 Records here in New York City and actually produced a few joints for Ghostface. But I became pretty intrigued just with his life story, and having gone to the Air Force and lived in Japan, and actually really became most established as a producer of hip-hop artists in Japan in the early 2000s. And I've been to Japan a handful of times and know a good amount of the artists there, and have a good familiarity with a lot of the producers and DJs. But what I found even more intriguing is that this guy then would be stationed in Iraq, and would really go through and see a lot of crazy stuff, and all the while being able to retreat back to his room or his bunker or dormitory, whatever it might be kind of considered, to make music on an MPC, and with records and on a portable. And you'll see in this conversation, I don't want to get too far along into describing it to you, but it's pretty amazing. And just pay attention and listen to this. Only here on the House List. If this is your first time tuning in, please don't forget to subscribe on iTunes or SoundCloud. If you feel so inclined, hit that like button, or write a little review or a comment or something like that, just to know that people are engaging with it. This is a DIY thing. Every episode is edited and engineered by CJ Stewart. He's either in Oregon or Northern California. I'm not quite sure where he is right now. But like every episode prior, me and him do these kind of back and forth. So it's just the two of us, really. And I seek out the guests and try to have meaningful conversations with them. And this is no exception. I think this is a really, really great one. I was surprised. I loved it because it was someone that I had never met or talked to before. And we just went in and had a really great chat. So without further ado, listen, I appreciate you guys tuning in. This is a modest affair, so thank you once again. Check out my conversation with Malik Abdul-Rahmaan, only here on The House List. Check this out. Yeah, I was just looking for some information about a show, about someone totally different, and I ran across that you have a show coming up at this venue, which I've yet to even go to. I think you have something like in a couple of weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Is it over at, was it Cape House, I think?
Yes, Cape House.
Yeah, so that's not going to happen.
Okay. Well, you know what? Then that's kind of, the serendipitous nature of the fact that I caught this show before it possibly fell through.
Yeah. It actually, I really did want it to happen. And I think it's still there's a very real potentiality to have it happen sometime in the near future. It's just like I got hit with the opportunity, and we were trying to turn it around so quickly. It just I don't think it was going to work. It wasn't looking like it was going to work.
Well,
out.
I mean, at least we could hook up that way because that's how I became familiar with your music.
Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Because I saw it, I'm like, I wonder what this dude's all about. Because I looked at the show and it looked like it was a producer. Like a live producer type of thing. And of course, I've never seen you play in a live setting either. But as I started kind of, and I research artists all the time, and I've worked in the music industry for a long, long time. And I like just stumbling across stuff in a very innocent, sort of casual way. And that's exactly how it happened with me with your music.
So I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's like... I'm a record digger, and I can tell you're a record digger. Like, I came and see some records over there, like the 45s and whatnot.
In the hallway,
yeah, my first impulse is like, what is this? Let me check these out real quick. But that's my life, and
yeah, me too.
And I kind of feel like, in some way, shape, or form, then like whatever it is that I'm doing, it's doing its job. Then at least, if people are kind of discovering it and reaching out to me, and I've had some magazines from like Germany and from France, and these like really massive Spotify playlists somehow, like they're coming across my stuff and putting it into these playlists actually, which is
that's amazing. Yeah, that can germinate someone's music in so many different ways.
I was really surprised, man. At first, I was just like, like whatever. And shout out to the folks who make those decisions. I really appreciate that. It is humbling because then when you look at it and be like, man, there's like 300-something thousand listeners to this, that's wow, okay, all right, thank you very, very much. So I do really, really appreciate that. And it's again, it's like when it starts from a simple idea, like a little seed, and then it blossoms into something like that, to where I can make a connection with somebody like you or whoever it might be. That's always appreciated.
Yeah, and I had like a pretty decent amount of knowledge about Paxico, the label.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, I'm hip to them, but there's a lot of artists on the label that I'm not familiar with, or that are, just kind of, it's like their first release, and a lot of them are tapes. But I know that label, Chris is the guy that runs it.
Yeah, Chris Hun, my man, Chris Hun.
Yeah, he seems like a cool guy. I've never met him, I don't think.
Oh, he's a great guy. Actually, he'll be in town next week. Actually, but Paxico was started in Brooklyn.
Right.
And then it relocated out to L.A.
Oh, okay.
And which is wonderful. I'm slightly jealous of him making that move because it's such a great time musically to be there.
Yeah, but that's also why I found it so interesting that I kind of stumbled across your music too, because there isn't a lot of producers and artists in New York City that are it's L.A. has such a wide kind of canvas of producer-based music, so many subgenres of it.
And I guess I don't know. It's like that's constantly, Bill Murray had said something one time, and he's like, the problem with New York is once you've lived in New York, nowhere else is good enough. And I think that there is like a lot of truth to that still. Like I love New York very much.
Are you a native New Yorker?
I'm not a native New Yorker. I'm originally from the South, actually, like from Louisiana and Texas. I kind of grew up between the two. And I used to live in Tokyo for like 8 years, actually.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about that too. Like, started learning a little bit more as I was getting ready to see you.
Yeah, we can jump into that, but yeah, so I think New York is just the closest to what it is I'm comfortable with, right, as far as like this big mass of people in one small place all jammed in together. I really like that.
When did you get here?
I got here like over almost 7 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like I've been here for a while, and I love it here, but I think it would make sense, I guess, to go to LA. At the same time, I've moved around a lot in my life, and I get at this point in my life like where I'm at is where I'm supposed to be at.
Right.
And if I'm not supposed to be there, then I just do something about that. But I'm not just going to go somewhere because there's a lot of other people there, because I feel like sometimes you can get a little miserable that way too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean in this day and age too, I mean it's not completely necessary to live in that place in order to get your music sort of heard by that kind of community. I mean, I just talked to an incredible rapper and producer, Milo, who has a lot of connections to that LA scene, but lives in Milwaukee and is from the Midwest and stays in Milwaukee, and it works really well for him, even though that's not like a hotbed of like community.
Yeah, that's like it's funny. It's like I've got a lot of great friends who are there, plugged into into their scene in LA, and they live in LA. And my home is kind of like the spot now where like a lot of those cats, if they're from LA or I had cats from Europe or different places, like they kind of come through and stop at my spot now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think that's part of the beauty of being in New York. If you're somebody who's vocal and really is out there socially, you don't have to worry about trying to go visit other people, because at some point they're going to come visit you, whether it's a layover or whatever, But I was talking to a homie who's doing a lot of stuff, like dope stuff out in LA, man. And I don't really like name dropping folks, but right. He was like, man, like if you move to LA, because I've been thinking about it. It was like the end of winter time, and after every winter, it's like, man, I'm gonna move to LA, man. It's
tempting, yeah.
But he was like, man, that would be the power move. But he's like, you're kind of like the homie out there in New York, and it's like we got somebody who's into the same shit that we're into in New York when we're out there. And
there's not a big community for it.
Yeah. There's room to do whatever you want to do.
Right. So. Yeah, because I saw too that you were kind of affiliated with the Beat House guys too, right?
Yeah.
Is that still active?
Yeah, it's still an active thing. Fresh Daily, who founded that,
yes.
He's out in Oakland. Shouts to Fresh. I was the first ever artist to play a Beat House set. It was on Green Street.
You were?
Yeah, it was me.
Amazing.
And then I think it was me, my man Vesa Twami. I think Obliv was in the house that night. My brother Suave was in the house. It was a really, really dope party. It was like a basement. It started in on Green Street over in Bed-Stuy.
Yeah.
And so in our man Chuck's basement. And then it moved to Glasslands. And now it's over at, I believe it's at Friends and Lovers. Or it might rotate around a little bit. But it happens like once a week, once every other week. It's still
right. And it's like DJs and producers, basically, right?
Yeah, DJs and producers, man. So
Fresh was the host of it, right?
He was the host, and we had my man DJ Jester, who is still running it.
Cool.
And he's a great dude. And also the homie Matt, Matt Boynton, he was also involved in the business side of things too. So they had a really good thing going, and it's still going. But some wonderful artists affiliated with them.
Yeah, I used to do a lot of shows with Fresh Daily when I was at the Knitting Factory. When I booked the Knitting Factory
really?
On Leonard Street, when he was...
Tarzan. Was he Tarzan then, or?
No, well, this is like shortly after that.
Okay, I love that. That's like my favorite ever like rap name.
Yeah,
Il Tarzan.
He, I remember he had his big, a big song that he would perform at that time was like, it sampled Biggie saying Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis.
Oh yeah.
But he was, it was a part of a larger collective, like the AOK collective type people, Homeboy Sandman.
Yeah.
Nola Darling and a bunch of that kind of...
That was an ill time.
Yeah, it was really cool. Yeah, it was like 2007 and 8, which was an interesting period of time in New York. I think even since then, New York has been
everywhere. Yeah,
yeah, definitely.
I mean, Blogosphere was kind of blowing up then,
right?
And Dilla had just died, and a lot of people didn't know what to do,
right?
And I think that was like, you know, you listen to Madlib and the Arvano Weighs a Ton documentary. I think that was so on point where he's like, motherfuckers just did not know what to do, because I feel like especially if you're making beats, or I think hip hop was just like tired, man. It was just really tired.
It was at a crossroads for sure. Yeah. I can see that with the shows too, because it was some of the '90s holdouts were still, you know, in the mix, but had yet to kind of have a second life.
Yeah, it was like, you know, like nobody was making 30 racks a track no more. You know what I'm saying? Hip hop was starting to get like, just like jazz did, like it was starting to get academic, you know. So it was like, you got to do it this way, you got to do it that way, and then you had this small minority of like people who were trying to do something new, or like, you know what? But yeah, it's been done plenty of times that way. Let's try it a new way.
Right.
And thankful for you guys and Fresh and all of them who thought to push and to give new producers a chance and to try to, you know, go in a different direction. I think that's really dope. So
right, because you were making music at that time too, obviously.
I was at that time. I was living in Japan. You know, and that's
I want to get your personal story too, because obviously, like, you're at a certain place, like, as a producer right now, because I'm really, my first introduction to your music was the Field Research Malaysian album. So a lot of stuff has happened since before that. Yeah. And I went back and I realized I had heard some stuff that I didn't know was yours, particularly the Ghostface stuff.
Oh yeah.
So, but I want to, like, did you start doing music when you were living down south? Or
we can dial it all the way back, man. Right. And I'm long-winded because I'm from the south, but I can keep things in a nutshell for you.
No, you can go on if you want, man. I'm from the south too. I'm from Virginia.
Okay, that's
still the south.
No, man.
Southwestern Virginia. It's not anywhere near DC. So.
Yeah. So you got country accents, man.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But no, you know, my brother was so I grew up my younger years, like, near a place called Denton, Texas.
Of course, yeah.
I
played rubber glove.
Oh wow, yeah. So, you know, they had like one of the best music programs in the country at UNT.
I didn't realize that.
University of North Texas. Has some amazing musicians, and just in Dallas in general, just always like just a massive wellspring of talent there musically. So my brother was an ill drummer, and he got me into playing drums, and I drummed a lot. You know, I was in band and all that stuff. Did a little bit of marching band, and then I just kind of let it go for a little while. And he had moved to New York at that point. Like, he was like working at a studio called Mixed Impressions, I think, at the time. That was on Broadway in the city. So he used to like record the Terror Squad and stuff like that. Would send me
as a producer or an engineer?
As an engineer, but, you know, he would slide certain cats, like his beats. You know, it was really competitive then, I think, you know, but it was a wonderful time. I wish I was up here. But, he offered for me to move up here, like, because he would send me, like, all the Clue tapes and all the, you know, Stretch and Bob, like, all these different tapes he would send me, man, like, when I was, like, young. And when I was 18, he was like, yo, you want to move to New York with me? But I was a little bit too wild, I think, at the time, man. And I was just like, you know what, man, I don't think that's a good look, you know, because I just felt like I wasn't ready for that. So in all my wisdom, I was ready. I don't know how I went to the Air Force, actually, man.
Really?
Yeah. I was born in Germany, and my pops was in the Air Force. And
so you already knew it, that life, right?
Not really, because I was like, by the time I was like 4, he was out, like he was a reservist, you know. But I wanted to travel, you know. Like the recruiter said something to me, and it got me, and I'll talk to my pops about it, and I knew that he was like living in Germany for like 12 years. That's where I was born. So I was just like, you know what, man, let me try that out, because I want to get the hell up out of here where I was at the time. So I took the ASVAB and I went into the Air Force. I didn't know anything about the military industrial complex, none of that, you know. It just was simply an out for me. I wasn't going to college. I wasn't getting no scholarships.
So this was right after high school?
Right after high school, literally. I went to Sweden for like about 4 or 5 months to stay with a friend of mine who was an exchange student. And I got back and was just like, yo, I ain't trying to stay here. Like, I need to get up out of here. And
where in Sweden were you?
I was in an area called Västerås, which is like an hour inland from Stockholm. But from there, like, we traveled all around Sweden, Denmark, all that. So
Cool.
had a ball.
Yeah.
So I went into the Air Force, man. And
Have you flown?
I mean, I've flown on a lot of planes, but I didn't fly. You know, I wasn't a pilot. You
Right.
know, that wasn't. Yeah, you had to go a whole different route.
I'm
that.
sure. Yeah.
But, yeah.
It sounds like it would be very involved.
Yeah. But
So what was that experience like?
honestly, man, I gotta say it was like kind of like it was a thing like night and day almost, man. It was like, you know, because I went into the military like in '98, so then it was like Reno 911. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Was it?
It was, man. It was like so chill. Clinton was in office, you know.
Right.
You know, I was traveling traveling the world a lot. You know, I was stationed in Guam actually, so I was traveling through Asia a lot.
Interesting. Okay.
And I was going to places like Vietnam and Philippines, Thailand, quite often. And you know, Bush came in and started making motherfuckers work and doing crazy shit, and it just became a whole different like thing. Then it was like, you know, we went from like Reno 911 caliber of military to like Black Hawk Down, like kind of caliber of like readiness and whatnot. And that's not really why I got in the military, you know. And I gotta say, like, during that time, like when I first went in, I was stationed in Guam. Like, Guam it's a little 30-mile long tropical island,
Right.
and it's only a few hours away from Japan. So I was meeting a lot of Japanese tourists, and you know, I met this one girl actually who had like she just had like this hip hop flair about her. You know what I'm saying? She's like, you're rocking 555 Soul and all this shit. And you're from Japan, like, you know. And she started sending me cassettes and CDs of like Japanese hip hop artists, and I was like, oh shit, like this shit is dope, like really dope. And at the time, like The Source was a good magazine, still like
This is the late '90s you're talking about.
Yeah, so there was a little bit of goodness in The Source left.
Right.
And so they used to have like this overseas focus, and they had a Japan focus, and it was like an 8-page spread on Tokyo, and I was just like, I was hooked. I was like, I gotta get over there, you know. When I was young, I was heavy into anime, and I kind of like wasn't into that anymore. But once I saw that, I was like, yo, I gotta go there, and I put in for orders.
What, to be stationed there?
I put in for orders to be stationed there. Literally, like, I re-enlisted right before 9/11.
Wow.
So I mean, everything was like just a party, you know. It literally was a party. Like it was a party. There was no war making. There was no crazy shit happening. So I re-enlisted. 9/11 hit, and then I got orders, and it was such a crazy turn of events. And now it's like, damn, I'm like handcuffed to this now, you know. And who knows how? Like there's no telling at that time at how deep things were gonna go,
right?
You know,
of course, yeah.
But either way, I got orders to like a little tiny beach resort, like on some Daniel-san and Mr. Miyagi stuff up in very top of Okinawa, man. I'm for real. And it's like, I hate to sound stupid, but it was literally like I wake up and I was on the ocean, and if you look like to 100 yards to like my left, there was like rice fields with like old women with like straw hats in it.
Right.
It was really like there's no base or nothing around, and I lived there for a year. And
how many other people were there?
15.
Wow.
That was it. Yeah, 15. Like we didn't even wear a uniform for like a year, and so that's where I got into making music. That's where I discovered a lot of music.
I mean, you obviously must have had. I mean, was there just like there's a lot of downtime then, right? Or what's the vibe like?
There was. I mean, yeah, it was a beach resort. So literally, it was attached to a Japan Airlines beach resort. Our side of it was like its own peninsula, and it was literally like military people would come there on vacation with their family. But I mean, it was like really, really so super relaxed.
Yeah, because it's not like a point of threat in any way.
No, not at all. Yeah, there's no operations going on there. It was just literally like chilling. So, but we were so far away, like hours driving from anywhere. Like, literally, what I would do was I would go online and I just started like ordering, because I was saving all my money. I ordered some gear. And then I started ordering CDs, like a lot of CDs from like Dusty Groove and all that stuff. And shouts to them, because they've been holding me down since I very first got interested in music. Oh,
that's dope. Yeah, I remember ordering from them in the late 90s too, right when they first started.
Yeah, and they remember like there was that website like CD Now. Yeah. But they would have like all these bios of artists and stuff, like, and that's how I learned about a lot of artists, actually, man.
Oh, nice.
Like, I was ordering like Fela Kuti on BMI, like his greatest hits. Like, I learned like kind of. I guess I look at it now like it was kind of corny. I feel, but it's not really. Wasn't really that corny actually. That was because I just dug. I dug and dug and dug. If I learned about a certain artist, I would get like their greatest hits, and then from there I would look at the players. I didn't know what I was doing at the time. And I realized, like, now that's how people dig, actually. I would look at who the personnel were, and then I would order their CDs.
Right.
And before you know it, I had, like, 400 or 500 CDs and a bunch of gear in my room. And I just taught myself how to make beats. I didn't have anybody to teach me.
And there's obviously no music there, really.
There was, I guess, there were record shops and things like that. Down in Naha is the main, the capital of Okinawa.
Yeah, right.
But I was like 2.5 hours away from there driving.
Really remote, right?
Yeah. It was a tiny. It wasn't even a village where I was at. I mean, it was very, very tiny. So at the end of the day, it's like I kind of was left on my own to learn. And during that year, I taught myself to play some piano and taught myself to very, very rudimentarily, whatever, make beats.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, so you're self-taught in this kind of locale too.
Yeah.
So your only audience were the other GIs there, right?
Nah, I didn't really fuck with them. So, yeah. And they didn't fuck with me. Like, it was literally, it was like after 9/11, like, I definitely was not no patriot. Right. You know, my last name was Abdul-Rahmaan, you know, so it's like, it was weird. So I just was stuck to myself, and I just... You know, like literally, if I opened the door to where I stayed at, and I was blessed to be stationed there. You know, to be honest, if I opened the door, I could just leave my room, and be on the beach like within like 10 steps.
Wow!
So every morning I would just walk around the peninsula on the beach and just listen to music and study the shit. And
what's the weather like there? Is it a cold place or is it?
It gets cool. It gets chilly, like you know, in the wintertime. But literally, like it gets muggy like here in the summer, and I mean the water's like a pool there, you know. It's like you can be out super deep. So I mean it really, that place impressed a lot upon me. Like used to go out like skin diving, like there was a boathouse there, like, you know, like jet skis and stuff like that, and all these guys who maintained it were like these Okinawan dudes who were like in their 70s who smoked and drank, but they all had 6-packs. And they're like in their 70s, man. Like, so I'll go out and like dive with them and stuff, and just I was really in tune and connected with nature at that place. But I put in so since I was in the Air Force, if you're in the Air Force and you do like a 12-month assignment, you can kind of get your preference anywhere else. It's what they call a short tour. You do a short tour, you get a preference somewhere else. So at that point, I had like a Land Cruiser. I had a Japanese Land Cruiser. I had a girlfriend who was living in Osaka. I would go to visit her every now and then. She was moving to Tokyo. I put in to get stationed in Tokyo, and as the luck would have it, I got stationed in Tokyo, and so I kind of knew my way around when I got stationed at that new place.
So what year is this now? Is it still 2001, or is it like now, a couple years later?
No, this is 02, end of 02. Right. End of 02, I got stationed in Tokyo, and they shipped my truck up there, shipped all my gear up there.
Wow. And
literally in the first weekend, like, I got there, like, cats were hating on me because it was like, I was like brand new there, but I was like, yeah, I'm here, I'll report for duty whenever, but I'm out. You know, so
really?
Yeah, because my truck was already there. Like, it's just like everything was there for me because they shipped everything early. So I literally got on the road, and I got in my truck and I drove to this club that I heard about back when I was in Guam, in the source called Club Harlem.
Yes.
And Club Harlem was the epicenter. It was a good old like summertime New York siren right there.
Oh yeah, so gotta keep the environment in the mix. Between that and the kids across the street, which is a constant all day long, every day.
You know what though? After 7 years, like I'm actually now like accepting of this shit. I used to not accept. I used to hate all the noise, but now I'm just like, it's gonna be there, and you know what? It lets me know that there's other people there. You know, so
definitely.
But no, yeah, Club Harlem is like the epicenter of a lot in Japanese.
So you started going.
Yeah, the very first weekend I got there, I got in my truck. I didn't know how to get there.
I mean, you're driving around too. That's crazy.
In Tokyo, yeah, I got on the highway, and I knew that there, like the signs. Some of the signs were in English and Japanese, so right. I literally followed it to Shibuya. I get to Shibuya. I found my way to Manhattan Records.
Nice.
In my truck, and there's like a when you go past Manhattan Records, there's a big pay parking lot. I parked my car. And then I got out and like asked people how to get to Harlem. I got to Harlem, and at Harlem, especially at that time, they didn't allow foreigners in unless you had like unless like GIs, they didn't allow you in unless you had like a Japanese escort to come with you.
Really?
Because like like cats like were like being knuckleheads, and getting in fights and whatnot.
Oh, right. Yes.
So they were like, nah, fuck that. They put the stop on that. But what ended up happening was they let me in. I don't know how they let me in, and then I went in. And I started recognizing all these artists. And I was like, yo, you're DJ Hazime. And they're like, the heck is this dude?
Oh, Japanese artist.
Yeah, they're like, who is this guy who's just showed up, doesn't know any of us, but he knows, like, who we are. And I was like, yo, yeah, I've been listening to a lot of Japanese hip-hop, and I know all about Harlem and this and the third. And they let me kind of rock with them for that time on,
Wow.
Yeah, so.
That's rare, though, that an American would come there and already be familiar, not necessarily. I mean, you had the time to sort of familiarize yourself and learn their stuff.
Yeah.
Which not a lot of Americans do, unless you live there, or you just tour there a lot.
Yeah, but I think that the kind of traveling I was doing in the military, like most millionaires don't get the quality of trips that I was getting. Like I was going to places like Thailand and Philippines,
right?
And I was just being dropped off there. I wasn't like in big companies of people, and I would just have to fend for myself for a couple of weeks until the next military flight came through.
Wow.
So, I had to learn by immersion to have a good time, and I was like a young guy then trying to meet chicks and whatnot and party and just have a good time.
Right,
so,
right.
End of the day, it's like, I think a lot of people, like, they do themselves a real disservice by not really immersing themselves into the cultures that they, it's like, good on you for taking a trip somewhere, but
right.
like, sometimes it's just a cursory glance, I think, and I think
Sure.
you can get so much more from your life if you actually just throw yourself all in into it.
Especially that part of the world too, when it's so different from European and American culture.
Exactly. So
yeah, that's amazing, man. So wait, when were you born? What year were you born?
I was born.
That's not too personal of a question. I'm just
Nah,
trying to
you know what?
gauge this. I think we might be around the same age.
Yeah, I don't mind. It's like I was born at 80, so I was born
yeah.
at 80, so I'm 37.
Yeah, I'm 37 as well.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
now I'm trying. Whenever you kind of track that, I'm like, okay, so I'm trying to figure out where I was during that period of time too, because when I was running I had a record label for a while.
Oh wow. Yeah.
So I did maybe 3 or 4 trips to Japan from around 2002 to 2010 or something.
Nice.
Like
You messing with Jazzy Sport or?
I was working with a company called Handcuts.
I know Handcuts. Yeah, I know them, man. I've done some stuff for them with artists.
And Subcontact, which was a much smaller.
Yeah, really, really underground. I know of Subcontact too. I was messing really heavily with P-Vine a lot.
Yes.
Yeah, P-Vine was kind of like I rock heavy with them.
They were an expansive company. Did a lot of great records with a lot of great American artists, producers, and stuff like that.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's like I say, like there is where I started actually really making beats. I'm not getting too long-winded.
No, it's very interesting. I mean, just even like how you even wound up there.
Yeah,
it's totally kind of random in a lot of ways. So.
Yeah, some of it was. I think a lot of it was, but there was some deliberation.
Sure.
But I mean. So the very first time I went to Harlem, I saw this and interacted with this woman, and I went back to Harlem like a couple of weeks later, and I kind of wanted to find this woman that I talked to, and she ended up eventually becoming my wife, my now ex-wife, but still a very good, very 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 close personal friend. But we started dating, and within the first like. It's like a month of me talking to her on the phone, and like I can't speak a lot of Japanese. She doesn't speak a lot of English. I finally got invited to her place, and she probably had about 4,000 records.
Wow.
In her apartment, man, and like I'm not talking like bullshit either. Like she had good records, and I was like, whoa. And she kind of taught me. She was the one who taught me a lot about records, actually. And I'll always. Her son's my godson. That's how much respect I have for her, even though she's my ex-wife, because she opened up an entire new world for me through music. She came up listening to like DJ Muro.
Yes, of course. King of Digging.
Yeah, King of Digging, man. And, all due respect to him.
Still the reigning king,
Still the reigning king. I mean, it's like if people don't know about DJ Muro. So there's a club above Harlem that's connected to Harlem you could walk up to called the BX Cafe. And every Saturday I would go to Harlem. So I got to know everybody, and they just gave me a free pass to go. So I didn't even have to pay to go.
Nice.
I was lucky. But I would go up to see Muro spin a lot, man. And this is like, mind you, like during the Rockefeller era, Kanye and Just Blaze are killing it. Muro, the ill thing about him was he was so ill at digging for records. And the record digging in Japan is insane. But
it's a whole nother category.
Yeah, but it's like that time was really special though, man, because like Kanye and Just Blaze and them were killing it, So the music was all sample based on the top 40. And so Muro would spin the top 40, but it would be like the sample sources. It wouldn't be the actual album. And it was like, oh my God, this guy is killing me, man. So I learned to dig from her, and she learned to dig from Muro. She actually gave me, like, when we parted ways, like, I have 8 of those KODP tapes. Wow. Like the original joints. Some of those joints are, I have like him and Lord Finesse.
Yes.
I got a couple of really good Muro tapes, man. But
that's amazing.
Yeah. So I started meeting artists in Harlem. Let me fast forward it. And there's another club in an area called Ikebukuro. In Ikebukuro, there was a club called Club Bed, and that's kind of like a miniature version of, I guess, what what the Tonal was in a lot of ways. Young artists who were bubbling up, they kind of had to and it's still going. It's great. Like they performed there. It was a live stage, and people went there to hear Japanese hip hop.
You remember Dabo?
Yeah, Dabo's my homie, Mr.
Nice.
Fudatsuki. Yeah,
he was kind of popping around that time too.
He was popping around that time too. Actually, yeah. Def Jam Japan was a real thing.
It was. That was my first trip to Japan. Was Handcuts flew me out and then sat me down and had a meeting at Def Jam Japan.
Who was it? Ray? Was it Ray? I forget. What was
the
it?
guy that worked at Def Jam Japan?
Yeah, I forget his name.
I probably still have his business card because I kept all these cards from back in the day. But it was a suit. It was like one of the executive guys.
Yeah.
And I think it
was Dabo, Tokonai X, this guy Sphere of Influence, who was Zebra's little brother.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, now your frame of knowledge is much deeper than mine.
Yeah. Oh man. It's just because I was there.
Of course.
So that first night I ever went to Harlem was a Def Jam Japan album release party.
Nice.
So that's so crazy, man. Oh my God. Yeah.
I mean, that was a thing. That was a big scene then too.
It was. It really was. And I mean, these guys like Dabo I've seen him bring out on a weekend night 5,000 people.
No way.
And I'm just like, dude, you're and he's got swag, you know what I'm saying? He's got flow, he's got all that, So the Shibuya scene was a very its own scene, and
right.
Japan had I remember way back I saw this picture. I drew a bunch of circles because I was just doing a lot of research, and I noted that in Japan all these different circles were later on what I will come to know would be called Gemba. Gemba is this concept of being in a circle of people, passing and bouncing some people to pass and bounce your ideas off of and whatnot. And
okay.
So, but the interesting thing with Japan is that those circles did have some overlap. So through the Shibuya scene, I kind of somehow got connected with a whole different scene in this area of town called Shinjuku.
Uh-huh.
And it was a whole different list of players, a whole different list of stars, all that, man. And I mean, they were doing their thing. And so I started making my first beats for these guys,
Nice.
And I met them at Ikebukuro and Club Bed, and that's where I got my first check from, man. And
dope.
My first opportunities, my name published, they don't say Malik, they call me Malik, So a lot of my credits in Japan are Marik, Marick or Marik. It's so funny, man. But I think it's actually kind of interesting. It's I got probably 50 credits out there, and none of them are spelled right, except for in the past few years. I was like, dude, y'all got to stop this, man, because the checks are getting big, and I had to start declaring taxes and stuff, man. So
right.
I was
it has to be the right name.
Yeah, I was like, bro, you cannot be doing this no more, man.
Did you ever intermingle with the Hideout production kind of crew of people, and obviously the legacy of the great
Nujabes?
Yes.
Yeah. So that's interesting. June running. So there's Nujabes had his name was Jun Seba.
Okay.
And it's just his name backwards, Nujabes.
Oh, and I never knew that, man.
Yeah.
And I've always admired his work too, and obviously he has a great legacy in Japan too.
No, it's so interesting because so there's when I started selling beats, there was a studio at one point. I was doing some work for an artist, and there's a studio not far from there. It's this guy named Deli who's part of this crew called Nitro Microphone Underground. That's Dabo's crew that he came up with. They were signed to Def Jam Japan. He bought like a clutch of beats from me. The studio that we were recording in at that time was in Shibuya, and I would go there early and just dig at this record shop nearby because they weren't ready to, they were probably doing like another session or whatever. Right. So this one record shop, I loved it. It's right next. So if you're looking at Manhattan Records, it's over to the left and up these stairs.
Which one? What was it called?
Guinness.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's Guinness, and then right above that is another record shop. Nujabes own those shops.
Jet Set, or is that?
I think it was Jet Set. I forget the name of it, man. But
so he owned Guinness.
He owned two shops. Yeah, one on top of the other.
Yeah, so I remember Guinness was dope too. It was really clean and cool.
Yeah, and then have like these tables with the turntables set into them, and you could just sit there. And there was like a beer machine downstairs. You could like grab a beer from the vending machine and just have a stack of records and just sit in the window and look out over Shibuya while you're listening to records.
I love Japan. Man.
Yeah, man, it's just the shit.
So, there's just so many peaceful aspects to it too.
Yeah,
experiences, just record.
Oh, totally. And then the record digging is better there, than anywhere else in the world. I think still.
Sure.
But because there's just more good records in that one location than anywhere else. But no. So I used to go in there before my sessions in the studio, and I would. There was a young guy who was working there. I forget his name now, but I would ask him if I could put my bag. In a lot of places you go to, they'll be like, "Can you check your bag?" And I check my bag. He'd be like, "Man, that's heavy." And I'd be like, "Oh, it's an MPC 3000, which is my machine." And I was like, "Yo, he's like, oh, you make beats and whatnot." So one day he was like, "Yo, can you?" He's like, "I want to hear your beats sometime." And I was like, "Yeah, you could." I was living in an area called Adachiku, and Adachiku is like way up in the northeast.
Okay.
So I just you got to go over like two rivers. It's kind of like the Bronx of Tokyo. Like mad projects actually out there. So I was like, you know what? I live in Adachiku, man. But he's like, well, nah, let me hear it here. He's like, and I was like, oh, can I plug in? I was like, I'll plug in and like play some beats for you. So
in the record store,
in the record shop, and it was pretty sleepy. It was like right now it's like 2 PM. There wasn't a whole bunch of people in there. So like I get a couple of beers, I hook in the MPC, and I just start playing beats. And the guy has a couple of friends that were coming by anyway, I guess, and they stopped in and they saw me, so they stuck around. And then this guy comes in and he looks at me and he's like, "That's my boss." And then he's like, he kind of gives me this head nod of approval, and goes back upstairs after a little while. And that was Nujabes, actually.
Wow.
So he heard me playing my beats in the record shop.
That's amazing. That's so dope, dude.
But I wasn't into his music, man, and I'm so ashamed of that, man.
It's fine. I mean, it's taste.
Yeah, Dilla was alive then, man, and I just only cared about what Dilla made. And you might not have only heard, but like one Dilla track a year, on somebody's album. But like for me, he kind of set the bar. I mean, I listened to a lot of other people, but that was my bar, And going back to it though now, I'm like, I totally missed an incredible opportunity, and you just didn't know that he was going to lose his life so early.
No, not at all. No, which is and he was a very special kind of Japanese producer too, because I think he really translated all over the world. I mean, he had fans all over the globe.
I have to say, so. A big part of what brought me to New York was actually I was accepted into the new school.
Okay.
So I went to the new school, and when I first started going to school at the new school, I was taking a course where I was like the oldest person in that class. Some of the classes I wasn't, some of the classes I was. New school has a lot of people who are returning students, is what they call it. People who might have left school and then decided to go to the new school because they could build their own curriculum. So anyway, I'm in this class, and we are going around talking about ourselves, introducing ourselves to everybody. It was this class at Parsons. I forget what the class was, but I had like 3 or 4 of the kids in the class was like, "Oh, you were in Japan? Like, do you know Nujabes?" And I was like,
shit.
"What?" And I was like, how do you know about him? I was like, what? And they're like, yo, he's so amazing, and this and that third, and you know, it makes sense though. It's like Samurai Champloo, and like and just like some of the works that he did, you know, it's just like it really resonated with these kids, you know, and that's just insane to me though. I'm like, bro, like they know him, and like he's like got youth around the world that ride for him.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this is like a crass comparison or not, but I mean, he kind of is like the Dilla of Japan. I mean,
yeah, I think he is in a lot of ways. I think it's a fair comparison though. I think because of the way how vaunted, you know, like his name is, you know.
Right. And when someone passes too, they become otherworldly. It transcends, like
like their whole work gets enshrined, you know. Right. And I think if you come from that kind of if you're a nerd, you know, and you love anime and you grew up especially loving like Japanese culture and wanting to know more about that, then I see how he is like definitely has this like seat of prominence, I think, you know. Right. I mean, for me, like being like a black guy from the South, a black man from the South, you know, from Louisiana, that's where all my family's from, is Louisiana, you know, from like a place like that was really backwards and really racist growing up, to go all the way around the world to a place I was really interested in, and then seeing how interested they were and how much they informed me on my culture. Mm-hmm. That's just like, I of course I would, if I was really into anime, I would definitely be on some like, yo, New Job is like my number one. Right. You know, but there are some amazing producers out there though, and I'm glad I got to befriend them, even though I didn't get to befriend him. So
right, yeah. I mean, just to have that just to be amongst that community, and during that period of time, too, where you are, it sounds like, now I know there's some credits that are sort of like that you can find online, but it sounds like there's a lot of stuff that no one in the States or would even be privy to as far as your production work with Japanese artists.
Most of it they wouldn't, man.
Well, they're not. One, it's not even getting here physically in any way, and it's artists that the language barrier prevents people from just getting down with it. Too.
Exactly.
But that's dope though that it seemed like you would work with both major label artists or like larger artists and smaller indie underground cats too. Was that kind of a fair?
Yeah, totally. I mean, most of my work started with one person. So when I was at Ikebukuro and Club Bed at that, there was a live show one night, and I remember my ex was like, you got to check out this one artist. He's really dope. He's this guy that I know, and I think you really like him, and you guys should work together, whatever. So I'm like, whatever. I go, and mind you, at that point, I only wanted to work with like Dabo and maybe a couple of other guys, but that was it. I wasn't really interested in working with any other Japanese artists. But this guy's name was Bess, and when he hit the stage, man, like he just like had this kind of like swagger about himself. Like I thought like he was American. I was like, yo, you know what? The way he's rocking the mic, and the way he's holding down the stage, and the way he flows actually, because Japanese is very rigid, but he flowed in a whole different way. Almost like, it was just like I was listening to somebody, like who was like rapping in English, but like if I were to like zone out, I would think it would be like somebody who was rapping in English. So we befriended each other. Here are my first ever beats, actually, and I did a track for him. I did 3 tracks for him on his first album, but one of those tracks became the single, and that track got a lot of burn around Japan, like a lot of burn. And then the next album, I did his next album. The video was taken down, unfortunately. I wonder where it would be at now, but I know when it was taken down, probably because of a sample issue. Right. It had around 600,000, hits on YouTube, nice. And this was like back in 2008 time frame, like 2009, 2010, like when it was taken down.
What's the song?
It's called The Process. There's another video that's back up there, but if you look up Bess, B-E-S, The Process, you'll see it.
So how was your Japanese at that time? Could you speak fluently? Or
no, I have like high level survival Japanese. like I could drive around, I could get lost, I could ask for some directions, I could go to a place and eat food, and order. If I knew it, I could ask them what kind of food they made there, and then I could order or ask them what they recommended. Like there are things I could ask, Right. I didn't learn to like read Japanese until I actually went to new school.
Interesting.
but even now it's very perishable. So it's like it takes me I went back for a few weeks to start the next field research, which is Field Research Japan, and just to reconnect and close some chapters and get things flat between me and some people I'm close to out there.
Right.
Yeah, I hadn't been back in a long time, so it comes back to me, after about a week and a half back. So
from how long were you out there in total? You got there around 2002 or?
Yeah, so Okinawa in 2001, I got there in 2002, and I left there around 2008.
Wow, it was quite a run, man.
Yeah. It was a good run, man.
Would you encounter American artists too when they came there? I mean, they brought so many New York artists.
Yeah.
It seemed like in the circles that you were running.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of times, I encountered certain people. I learned really quickly because there was a very real celebrity around their artists too.
Yes.
So I learned to kind of just be around people who are really known without getting starstruck or acting stupid or
of course,
embarrassing myself, making them uncomfortable. But I also saw some artists I saw a lot of artists and it kind of proved to me actually I wouldn't say it proved to me then at that point, but there is a saying you don't want to get to know your heroes. Right. And sometimes that was proven true, but for the most part everybody was cool because I wasn't going to Roppongi and these other areas where most people were going to.
Yeah, Roppongi would be where the
GIs would go there.
Expats would while out.
Exactly, a meat market, man.
Right.
I would never go there. I was in Club Yellow and Club Milk and Shibuya Nuts and Club Harlem, all these places that it was only almost exclusively Japanese people and maybe me and maybe two other people, who were.
Do you know DJ Quiet Storm? He was an American guy, right?
Yeah.
LA cat.
And he was out there. Actually. We met each other once or twice, man, but we never really got a chance to really, really kick it heavy, man. But he was a good dude whenever I met him.
Cool.
But yeah, I would say the people who I met were the nicest, man, were the Stones Throw Cats, though.
Oh,
man.
yes. And we have a long history of Japan, story in Japan, too.
Yeah, man. And I mean, the reason I say that is because I moved to LA when I left Tokyo, and, I met, I had a couple of times kicking it with Madlib and Egon and especially Metaphor out there.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
Yeah, and they were always, when I saw them at the Do-Over, they remembered me. I saw Madlib not long ago here in New York on the street. He remembered me still.
That's dope.
Just dude was a really, really kind person, man. Yeah. And obviously for me, he's the greatest alive.
Yeah.
And I just for him to be that way with me, that was really impressive. So I got to meet a lot of artists though.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what's your life like, and what's your career like after post Japan? You moved to LA. Are you there for any extended period of time? Because you've now been in New York for quite a while. So
I was in LA for about a year and a half. And
were you still in the military? Or?
No, I was out. I got out. I was done. I was you know what? I played musical chairs of deployments, trying to not get deployed, and got bit by the Iraq bug, and I had to go. And actually, when I first met Mal, it was literally a week before I left. Actually, it was Chrome Children tour, and he blessed me with a couple of CDs or something he was spinning actually.
Wow.
And then he gave me a Chrome Children CD as well. One of those CDs was actually ended up having stuff from his BBE Beat Generation stuff on it, but he just gave it to me. I think the other one was the 64 beats beat tape or something like that was floating around for a while, or have some joints on there.
Yep.
But
so you went to Iraq?
Yeah, I went there, and I made a lot of beats there.
What was the vibe like? What was the living situation like?
It was kind of wild, man. I was remember the Abu Ghraib situation happened, so
right.
They ended up instead of allowing offensive force troops to watch detainees, they're you were going to have the more technical forces the Air Force and the Navy watch the detainees. So I was working with detainees a lot,
Dang, really?
Yeah, it was about probably at its height around close to 30,000 detainees there, and
Jesus
probably
Christ,
a couple of thousand of us, and that was it, But it was really interesting because my last name is Abdul-Rahmaan, and we had to, we kept our name tags on because I I think one of the things that got reformed from that whole Abu Ghraib situation. So we have our name tags, and literally like the they call it the TIF, the Theater Internment Facility. It was split up into like many different compounds of like 1,000 people each, and I don't know how they knew, but like, well, they saw my name, Abdul-Rahmaan, and within 2 days, every detainee like in the entire facility knew that there was like a guard named Abdul-Rahmaan. And
did they treat you differently?
Yeah, they sometimes they would riot and things like that, but I never had to deal with that, and they were talked to me a lot easier, because they knew I was Muslim. So
amazing.
Yeah, it was. I think in that kind of a situation, like, security is just an illusion. We're not running, we're not in control of anything. They were very much in control of everything, and that was when I kind of started to get my education really like deeply around like the injustice of war. I belong to Veterans for Peace now.
Good.
I got to see like some really ill shit up front and close and personal, and I think it takes like going through a situation like that for it became like a catalyst for me to learn like really what the military is. In respect to everybody who's a troop. I got a lot of friends still in that, but I also understand that like the military industrial complex. I understand why I made my decision to go, because it's not like it wasn't like it was a unique thing. It preys on a lot of like brown and black people who come from like impoverished or low income families or backgrounds. And the way that it's been utilized over the past like decade and a half has not been right. It's like it's people who are sacrificing and signing their lives on the line, and they're really going to serve for ulterior motives, I believe.
Well, when you're in a complex like where you were, and you see so many things that just simply will never truly make it into the media.
No, not at all.
Exposed in such a different way.
Not at all. It's like, I used to work like the night shift, for example, man. And, you just sit there. Like, I was like one of the sergeants, on duty. So it's like I would just sit there and talk to like the chief. There's like an interpreter in each compound. There's like a imam in each compound. I mean,
really?
My compound had like 1,200. And it was mostly Baathists, so they were from like Baath party supporters. They're from a lot of them are Al Tikriti, they're like from Tikrit, which is like where Saddam Hussein is from. So they didn't really they weren't combatants or anything like that. I did work in a compound that was like people who were hardcore, like basically Al Qaeda, people who admitted that they were that, but when I was in Iraq, I was working around these guys who were pretty much normal people. But there's this one guy, man, and a lot of the guard force who were women, Air Force and Navy, they would say he was cute, man, and I think his name was Maher, and it was interesting, man, because he was like I think he went to college in the States or in Germany. I think he's been to college in the States for like a year maybe, or two. Then he went to college in Germany, spoke like 6 languages, and he owned like a few different exotic car businesses, during Saddam's time.
Right.
And one night we were just sitting there talking. We would play chess, and we would just have like and we would have like they have like like kahwa, like basically like Arabic coffee. It's really mad thick.
It's like muddy almost. Right?
Yeah, sometimes like there was one guy there. The imam hated this guy, but sometimes there's a guy there that knew how to read people's cups. So sometimes they would read your cups. Because that's a thing. It's like instead
what do you mean?
So instead of reading your palm, like, you flip the cup over and you see how it runs down, and then you can actually intuit certain things from that,
Really?
Yeah, that's a real thing, man. So
that's amazing.
It is, because it's so thick that people can start to see things in that, but in the way it runs down. But anyway, it's like, not to get too deep, but, it's like I asked him, I remember one night I was like, Maher, like, we're smoking cigarettes and just talking all night at the fence, and I was just like, Maher, like, so what are you here for, man? Like, I never, I made it a point to not try to get into their files or read their files, because I'm working with these people day in, day out. And he's like, man, where I'm from, like, a lot of people live in big compounds, so like we lived in the compound, and it was always like brothers, sisters, and 3-4 generations, and he was telling me that one night there was a birthday party. There was a celebration for a birthday. And essentially what had happened was, like, you know, what they do there is they shoot in the air. That's what they do.
Right.
That's how they celebrate there. So they
let off a couple in the air.
Yeah, they let off some rounds, you know, but it's like a bunch of people letting off rounds together, but they don't do it all night, you know, but they did that, and at some point that evening time, like a Marine platoon came in and killed a lot of people in his family, you know, and I think within the next, I mean, literally, like, a lot of women and children lived in the front of the compound, so it's a lot of women and children. He's like, essentially, most of his preceding generation and the younger generation in his family got killed. Like, a lot of people got killed. And so he said, like, a lot of the men in his family, like his brothers and cousins, they went back and they sought revenge, and they got revenge. And I sat there and I just was quiet, you know, and we were just smoking, and I was like, yeah, I get that. I mean, what the fuck would I do? You know, I'm for real. Like, what the fuck would I really do? I'd probably do the same thing, you know?
Yeah, they killed every member of your family.
Yeah, it's just like, dude, you can't sit here. You know, it's so easy to be like, yo, that's war, this and the third. But no, it's not war, man. It's like, that's like human nature, you know? It's to do something like that, you know? And we stayed cool, you know what I'm saying? We stayed cool and we kept talking. And I'm not saying, like, it's cool to, like, go out and murder troops or anybody or whatever. I just connected and understood where he was coming from as a person, you know. So that's kind of what I got out of that trip, and that's what, you know, as soon as I was done, like, I was just like, you know, definitely got a little religious on that trip, and was like, man, like, yuck, if I can get out of this, I know we ain't had a good relationship, you know, to whatever, you know, Allah or God, whatever you want me to call you, like, but if I get out of this situation, man, in one piece, I'll get out, and I'm done.
Did you feel like under threat while you were there? I mean, it must have been a high risk place.
Yeah, there's some times. Yeah, definitely. I mean, you get attacked by mortars a lot. You know, a lot of mortar attacks and things like that.
But you were sitting with some of the detainees, like, right? So there is some sort of intermingling that happens, or
yeah. There's an intermingling that happens. It was just such a convoluted, like, situation. It's like.
Right.
So I'm sitting with the detainees. The majority of the detainees in the facility are Sunni, but we're located like an hour south of Basra, like in Shia territory.
Right.
So of course they're just like, yo, we can if we mortar these guys, we'll either hit troops or we'll hit other Sunnis, so we're good. You know, it was wild, man.
Wow.
You know?
So there's even some sort of kinship in a way just because of that. You're both under threat in those kind of bizarre different reasons.
Exactly, and that's what ended up happening. There was a big mortar attack there, actually, and I was involved in that. There was a massive mortar attack. And
were you injured?
I wasn't injured, but there were a lot of people who were around me when it hit. You know, it's like about 60 casualties. If you look up on Google, like Camp Buka mortar attack, you'll see, and it talks about that. You know, but yeah, it was pretty wild. It was like 60 casualties. I think about 12 KIA, you know, all detainees, you know, and it's just, you know, so it's like seeing that up close, like, it was just like, yo, I'm done. Like, I've seen enough about war, you know, like, most people and most human beings can't see something like that and not have it affect them. Like, almost really nobody can, because it's just not natural.
No.
Like, war is not natural. Conflict is not natural. And it's you know, for me, music really literally was what kept me sane. So when I returned from Iraq and I went back to Tokyo, there's a album that came out from my man Best called Rebuild, and it got really massive buzz. But every single track, I did the lion's share of the production on that album,
right?
And every single track I made in Iraq, on top of a lot of other stuff. My homies here in New York sent me like an MPC 3000
to Iraq.
Yeah. I had an SP404, and I was on Dusty Groove ordering like CDs and 45s, and
so you got a portable turntable too.
Portable turntable, and I mean, they would sometimes do inspections, and they'll come into like it was like a little pod, like a little metal trailer that I shared with one other person, and they would just, you know, I remember my commander came in, was just like, yo, what the hell do you have going on in here? But I told him, I was like, dude, I'll go crazy if I don't have my music though. And for me, that's the power of music, you know. It really did help me keep my mind straight.
Well, you can look forward to it every night, or when would you create at night, late at night, or something?
At night, 'cause we work 14 hours a day, like 6 days a week. So I would just, you know, every night I'd get off, and I would just go straight to making music, and that was like my way to decompress from everything. And then my day off, I would, you know, go, you know, get some food and then go back and make music again, you know.
I mean, you can't really go anywhere, right?
Exactly, you can't do anything. So
how the hell do you get out of that place? I mean, is it as simple? It's not as simple as being like, okay, I'm ready to leave now. Like,
yeah, I mean, well, I tried that, you know, and they tried to lock me up. So they're like, that was the threat. I mean, it was basically like, yeah, if you don't deploy, or if you don't see your deployment through, like you'll go to prison. You'll go to the brig for desertion.
Because that's desertion.
Yeah, that's not to look either, because essentially that's like a felony on the outside, and you ain't getting hired by nobody, you know, or nothing. It's just not a good look. So I was like, you know what? Let me just see this through, man. But yeah, man.
Wow.
I made it. You know, I made it out, and you know, got out and went to LA. Like, stayed in Japan for a while, but I went to LA like after leaving Japan though, and I felt like it was time to go. I had seen enough in Japan and done enough, and went to LA. And
was it just all music once you got to LA, or was that the plan?
No, actually, that was a plan. I wasn't even a plan. I think the plan was really just to go there, because I didn't know a damn thing about LA. It was more so my ex wanting to move there, so I just moved there, and I didn't know much about it. I had this album called 1983 passed to me. I think it was 1983, Flying Lotus, or was it 1984? It's 1983. Right. Yeah, so the week literally I was moving from Tokyo, somebody passed that to me. And I was like, okay, cool, I'll check it out. And I was like, oh, this is cool, this is different. Not my thing. Yeah, I don't know, maybe, I don't know. Let me see. And so I moved to LA with that CD. I got there, where I eventually ended up settling was in Silver Lake, but I was literally like just a few blocks away from this club called Little Temple.
Oh yeah,
near North Virgil, and I can hold that for you for a little bit if you want to rest your arm.
So,
yeah.
But I just switched the arm up. Yeah, Little Temple, which now is the Virgil.
Yeah. So there was this was a Sketchpad party, I think it was.
Okay.
That Koopma was doing. It's like one of the earliest beat parties, man.
Oh, cool. And, I didn't know. I don't know about that one. That particular one, and I know a lot of them. But
they'll pass out paper and people could draw while people were playing beats and stuff.
Yeah, cool.
It's pretty ill. I only went to like a couple of them, but that's where I saw like DiBiase. I saw I think Georgia Ann. Ross G. I think we had our initial encounter there, and shouts to him. He's a really good dude.
Incredible producer too.
Yeah, he is. Just a good spirit. I encountered, and that was my kind of my whoa, like these guys are making beats, and it's not for rappers. They're making beats just to make beats for themselves.
Right.
It's their expression, and so that really struck a chord with me. Plus, they just had this whole new sound. So, the first ever party I went to when I moved to LA was a few weeks in. I went to the Do-Over. Yes. And the Do-Over was still, it was popping, but it wasn't like the spot yet, but it was kind of getting there.
Right.
And they kind of did some LA shit to me, like the security guard, man, built a queue up off of me. I got there mad early. And there was a little patio in the front of the Do-Over and whatnot.
Right.
And Madlib's there, he's like, oh, what up? There's metaphor. And then I'm like, dude, let me in. The guard, the security guard didn't want to let me in, and I'm just like, dude, you're gonna really make me stand here, in front of everybody like that?
Really?
I felt like the biggest fucking nerd, and so I literally had to stand there for 2 hours. To
what?
Get in. And they built an entire queue off of me that was stretched around the block. But what happened was when I was still in line, I called one of my homies that I knew there. It's like, yo, I think this isn't too far from you. You should come through. He came through. He was hungover from the night before, so he brought some brews. We're in line, and then this really tall, kind of nerdy looking brother that gets in line with us.
Okay.
And so I was just sitting there. I was telling my man, I was like, yo, I think I know this guy. He looks really familiar, but I'm not certain if it's him or not. And within about 30, 45 minutes, they make him stand in line too. I guess he had been trying to call somebody from inside, and they they went and hollered at him and whatnot, and they're like, yo, he's coming in, and he was like, yo, he can come in with us too. You know, so me and my homie, like, he drug us in, so he saved us from a queue. Well, that guy ends up setting up, because that's the whole premise of Do-Over, is like you know, they were calling just homies to come through and play.
Right, because it's all unannounced.
Yeah, so he sets up, and he's like, yo, what's up? You know, I'm on Flying Lotus. I got this new album about to drop called Los Angeles, and I want to play it for y'all. And that was like my first ever like party function, you know, attending like in LA.
Wow, it's quite an introduction then.
That was insane, man, because it's like, you know, I remember there was like Black Milk.
Right.
I think Shoes was there, House Shoes was there. We had you know, Metaphor was there, Madlib, Kareem Riggins. It was like all these like notable people were in the spot, man, and I'm just like this nobody, you know. I'm just sitting there, just a fan, you know. And you know, fresh out of Japan, and just everybody was just like damn in the zone, like whoa,
right?
Like, yo, this, you know, kind of witnessing like this new like dawning of a new era type shit.
That's amazing, yeah. And LA they really show out for their events.
Yeah,
so you see the whole.
Well, that's how the line got so big. Like word got out, man, and like all these young kids are like there, like in line, waiting to hear Flying Lotus play, man. But it was dope, though. It was really, really ill to see that, and I think that definitely positively affected my time there. Positively affected my music making. I wasn't making a whole bunch of music. I was digging a lot, but I wasn't making a whole lot of music during that time. And eventually, you know, like the marriage fell apart, and for me, like the divorce meant I had to leave LA, and I left LA and went back home, you know, to be around family for a little bit.
So where in Louisiana are you talking about? Are you talking about like
Monroe?
North?
Yeah,
Monroe.
North Louisiana, yeah.
So not that far from Shreveport.
Yeah, not at all. It's like 2 hours past Shreveport, you know. But at that time, my mom was living in Dallas, so we
okay, so
moved
it's
back.
Close.
Yeah, we've moved back and forth. It's like a 6-hour drive, you know. Right. So my mom was in Dallas, and so I went back to be near her and my brothers and sisters, you know, and my brother and sisters, and so I was back in Dallas for about a year and a half before I started putting the wheel in motion to leave and head up here to New York, and that was when I met my fiance now. So
right. So you've been it's just interesting to kind of track that story where all along you had other pretty involved things going on in your life, and the production and the music stuff was at times like, you know, definitely a paid profession. I guess in Japan you were getting money, you're getting paid for your work, and then in Iraq it's a totally different you know, just means of remaining sane, you know. It's really cool, because now where do you sort of see your place now? Because, you know, New York is obviously its own planet too, and we started talking about at the beginning.
I mean, I feel like New York is like, you know, so there's definitely like starts and stops. And I always feel like my music was like a symptom of my life, wherever I was at, you know. So if I was in a good place and I was, you know, things were healthy or whatever, like music is there. If it's not, it's not there. But New York is a great place, because I think you come to New York to build things and then watch it fail and fall apart, and build it again and watch it fail and fall apart, and then you kind of perfect it, you know, through trial and error. And I appreciate that about New York, because it's such a frank city, you know.
Absolutely. You have to work very hard to accomplish things.
You do, but you learn so much through doing that, you know, and you got to bend when you don't want to bend, you know. But,
and you have to do it amongst millions and millions of people, all in close proximity.
Yeah, and a lot of them trying to do the same shit, you know, but in a different way, though. You know, it makes you find your voice and what's unique about you. Yeah. You know, so now it's like, somehow like music is like a large portion of what my life is, you know, and I'm very, very appreciative of that. You know, I've done production for some decent names, and or, you know, some known names and some not so known names, but I also have I discovered, and I think this was through my going to the new school, honestly, I work better whenever I'm like doing projects on my own, and or even if it's with people, but if there's like a clear narrative, you know. So that's kind of how the field research, you know, project was born.
Yeah, so break that down for me. So you go on a trip specifically for music?
Yeah.
So you go to Malaysia, the country of Malaysia, to dig for records, basically.
Yeah, so I was going to Malaysia anyway, actually. Me and my fiance were going to visit a friend of ours, a friend of Keela. Keela was living in Malaysia for like 2 years, and she was getting ready to like move back, and or at least like stop working where she was working, so she was going to travel for a while and then come back.
Okay.
So we were like, you know what, like about 7 to 8 months out, maybe even like maybe 9 months, 8-9 months out, we were like, we just bought tickets. We're like, you know what, we got to go. We're going to regret it if we don't. And forgot about it, you know, like, didn't have the money for the trip or none of that. We just had the money for the tickets. And then ended up, like, about a month out, like, it started getting real. Like, oh, yeah, that's going to happen in a month, right? We're going to Malaysia. Like, whoa. So I was sitting there talking with my lady, and I was just like, you know, I think I should, like, turn, like, it'd be dope if I turned our trip into like a project or something, you know. I just felt this itch to like really start getting into work, and start working on music stuff, and messed around, and before I knew it, she you know, she was like, yeah, you should definitely do that, and she came up with a title. She made the field research title, actually.
Oh, nice.
And so I got to Malaysia, and before I went there, like I kind of started doing some research online, because found out that there wasn't a lot of record stores still open, but I was able to find some of the record store owners online.
Really?
And one of them, I reached out to, actually. He still has a store open. His name is Joe Rosario, out of Amcorp Mall, and it's in a area right outside Kuala Lumpur.
Okay.
It's in the basement of this mall. If you ever go, you got to go, because they do a flea market there like every Saturday, I think, and they have the flea market, and there's all kinds of ill shit. There's people who sell records, all that, and then his store is down there in that basement. And he has mad records. And I just, between him, I tracked down through like really kind of word of mouth, another record store that isn't even open all the time, in another area we were staying at called Penang. It's an island off of the west coast, and it's kind of like in this area called Georgetown, which is really it's like a very, very heavily colonized area, you know. Right. But I found
with a name like Georgetown.
Yeah, exactly. But I found some amazing records, you know. And then I was also just taking my field recorder around and just field recording, and I just had this idea of like, you know, my favorite pastime is like, you know, watching like Anthony Bourdain. Like, you know, I'll order some Indian food or even fucking pizza, you know, and I'll just sit in bed and watch Anthony Bourdain. You know, so I love his show, man. I love the way he travels, because I think he travels the way that I travel,
right?
You know, but yeah, I thought to do the same thing, but with music, because, you know, a lot of people can't taste the food that he's going out to try.
Sure.
But you can hear the music, and I was finding some amazing music out there. So
yeah, I love the record. I mean, it's and it's like a pretty expansive, you know, project, because it's like 30 joints on it or something like that, right? So
yeah.
And all the stuff it's basically a collage of both the records that you purchased and found there, but you're also basically with like a recorder similar to this. I would assume you'd, because there's a lot of environmental sounds. And so you get back, and then how do you? What's the process of just doing that?
So I get back, and I didn't touch anything for a year. I got back from that's what a lot of people don't know is that. But a lot of people don't know is that actually that entire project was made in about 3 weeks.
Oh, dope.
I was working at A1 Record Shop. I worked at A1 Record Shop, legendary record shop. That's my family.
Yes, iconic store in New York City.
In America, really too.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
it's known. And so I was working at A1 for I worked at A1 for a few years, you know. And
okay, I didn't know that. Cool.
Yeah, and so I get back to work, and I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna do this project, and I didn't even think about it, and it kind of hit the back burner. Almost a year, little less than a year after I returned back from Malaysia, I was working one day, and I felt this like tug in my back. You know, we had like a shipment of like 150 boxes of records, and I'm walking them into the basement one after the other, and by like 8 o'clock that night, like I was like laid out on top of a pallet of boxes of records.
Right.
And I could not move. Like I slipped the disc and herniated another disc.
Damn.
And that had happened before, but like this one was hard, you know. So I actually ended up being stuck in the house for like about 3 weeks. You know, and it took me like 25 minutes to walk from my bedroom to my studio room.
Oh man, it's brutal.
Oh, it was fucking awful. But that's when I did the project. I did everything. Like I was like working.
Laid up at home.
Laid up at home, man, working like 14, 15 hours a day. I started getting in the zone, and I just did the bulk of the project then.
How many records did you bring back from the trip?
I brought back like about 120.
Wow.
You know, I didn't use them all. I mean, I got a lot left over. It was a lot of stuff that I just liked, you know. But,
sure. Because it's all genres of music, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All genres of music, man. But a lot of Bollywood stuff
nice.
that I just couldn't find here. A lot of Malaysian like funk, and even like Malaysian like ballads, like P. Ramlee is like one of their most famous like historical Malaysian artists. He was an actor also. Man, I found like some Indonesian stuff. I actually found some Eastern Asian stuff. I found one record actually. I talked to Egon about it. I found this one record. It goes for like about $600, man, online. It was a Korean record actually.
What is it?
It was this band called He Six. It was a group.
Oh, okay.
And
rock?
Stone's Throw, yeah, rock, but with some soul and funk. Also, covers on their album too. They did or actually Now Again Records did a reissue of that album.
Oh, amazing!
Which is crazy. Yeah. And I just found, but I didn't know that until I got back. I didn't even like do the inventory of everything for like a good little while when I got back. But yeah, man, it was just like holy shit! Like I found some good stuff, and I just went to work on it. You know, after about a year.
Is there one of the songs is dedicated to Anra?
Yeah. My man Arno.
Yes,
Arno.
I saw that. I was like, wow, because I mean, it is reminiscent of the Shino series.
Yeah, Shino series. Yes, it's so funny because we met. So me and Arno met. And peace, man. If you hear this, it's my G right there, man.
I'll send it to him. We lived together for a while.
Really?
Too, yeah, and we're old friends.
So this is the funny thing about Arno, man, is that Onra, like we met because he came to New York, and I think we met through mutual friend of ours named Fitz Ambrose out in Japan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So but we didn't meet in person. Then Fitz was just like, you should. I think he was like, he kind of directed him towards me. But we he came to A1 and then we linked. And he's like, I'm gonna come by your crib, and he came by the crib, and we just built for hours, man. And honestly, I feel like he was like a brother to me, man. I just had never met, and come to find out, we are born one day apart.
No way, really?
And we are both born on an Air Force base in Germany. Actually.
That's right.
His father was was French Air Force, and my pops was American Air Force, man.
Incredible.
1 year apart, but 1 day apart though. Same circumstance though, so that's okay.
He's a great conversationalist too.
Yeah,
like, he's great. He when we lived together, just for a brief period of time, when I lived out in Bushwick, and we spent a lot of time just like hanging out, smoking cigarettes, and like listening to records and smoking weed, and just like just bugging out and talking about all music and all types of shit too. So I was so pleased to see that in that record that there was some sort of kindred spirits between the two of y'all too.
Yeah,
I didn't realize you guys had a connection too. So
that's my man right there, man. Actually, when he came through the first time he came through, I was telling him about the project. I'd never heard Shinwa series before, though.
Oh, amazing.
So I didn't know. So I was telling him, I was like, I'm going to do this travel thing and whatnot. He's like, man, that's what I do, man. I was like, oh, shit. I was like, my bad, man. I'm not trying to bite you or nothing. He's like, nah, man, let me see the records, man. So he went through, and he showed me the couple that he had already touched, but he was like, nah, there's a lot of stuff you have here that I don't have. And he deals with a lot of Chinese records,
yes.
You know. So I had like a lot more than Chinese records. I had some, but I had like a lot of Indian and Malaysian and some Thai and Indonesian. So. Yeah,
it's a cool take on that concept.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think all of it, mine, his, there's other people who do similar things, but I think that it's honestly a nod to Madlib, you know, the beat conductor.
Yes, because he also had some really great ones. The Bollywood one,
Heard there's a part 2 out there, man, but I would just say, like, he needs to kind of hurry up, because if he don't drop that, I'm going to drop mine. I'm gonna have to do it differently though.
So what? Before we kind of wrap, like what? What's next for you? Because this tape, the field research thing is new. It just came out like within the last couple of months, right? So
there's a few things actually. Field Research Malaysia came out May 4th. You can find that through Paxico Records. You go to paxicorecords.com.
Right.
And you can scroll down and find the cassette, and you can also find the digital release.
Yeah.
But I'm working on Field Research Japan. I think I'm going to release it about next year. Same date as Field Research Malaysia.
So obviously you must have accumulated a lot of Japanese records when you were out there too, right?
I did, but pretty much everything that I'm doing for the project is stuff I actually went back to find in Japan. Actually, I specifically went to go dig for stuff in Japan.
What were you going for?
Oh man, just whatever. Boogie? No, not at all, man. A lot of Japanese jazz actually this time around.
Yeah, some amazing.
And
there's so much history in Japanese music in general too.
Yeah, and record digging follows trends, and I found some records that I never would have found back in like 01, 02, that I found this time, because like people's interests aren't there. But I'm like, oh my god, I can't believe I found this record. So I brought back some amazing records. I dropped a chunk of change on them, but
yes, that'll happen.
Do that. Yeah, that'll happen. I have an album that's production wise is almost pretty much complete. There's an artist named Pink Sifu out of LA.
Right. Vocalist.
Vocalist. Yep. Who gets down. He has an amazing album called 2009 with Swarvy, and he has an album coming out on My Designs label with Ollie. Called Be Kool-Aid this August, but we have an album together.
Dope.
It's like a little brother to me, man. I also have a project that's probably gonna be dropped out a lot sooner than anything else. Potentially with this producer called Sadhu Gold out of Philly.
Oh, cool. I'm not hip.
Yeah, he gets down with like the Griselda cats, like with the guy Fahim, Mock Hami. These are guys who get down with like Westside Gun and Conway.
Nice.
I mean, it's just I grew up on gangster rap, man. So that's really literally what I grew up on. I wasn't a backpacker, man. So I
like Texas. Are we talking about Texas rap? Or are we talking
East Coast, Queensbridge. Actually, I grew up on Queensbridge hip hop, man. Nas and really Cormega is one of my favorite MCs of all time, man.
Nice.
And he's a rapper. He's more of a rapper than an MC, but I don't know. I always loved that, man.
That's what's up. Yeah, Cormac is amazing. But,
okay. So I got those three. Oh, and I totally forget, and I shouldn't have, and I feel bad for this, but shouts to the homies in Texas, JT Donaldson and his label New Math Records. So I do some A&Ring for them.
Oh,
cool. And I have a project with another artist called Norvis Jr., who's an amazing vocalist and producer too from Dallas as well.
Right.
And got a house project, so he's gonna be the vocalist on my productions.
Oh, nice.
So
yeah, I've known JT for a long time too.
That's really?
Great. Yeah,
Holy
definitely.
Shit.
Yeah. So
man.
we have some connective tissue.
Oh, that's
there.
what's up, man. That's good. Yeah, JT's my man. Yo, he's like a brother to me, man.
Oh, very cool.
Good people, yeah, man.
Absolutely.
So they've got some great stuff happening. He's got some great stuff happening with his imprint. Some really interesting music. And I'm just, really, it just got back from playing the New Math Festival down there.
Oh, very cool. Okay. So New
awesome.
Math Records is JT Donaldson's label.
Yeah, that's his label.
Dope.
That's his label. And they had a great festival down there a couple of weeks ago and had a great time. And he's got some amazing young kids. Ben Hickson and the guys who are with Dolphin Records.
Are these all Dallas guys?
Yeah, all Dallas guys. They're freaking out. John Bapp is down there. I don't know if you know
Yes,
John Bapp.
I am.
He moved down there to be near these guys, which is insane.
Wow,
it's a testament. But they've got some groundbreaking music, man, that's about to actually start flowing out of there. And it's a really, really great time. So I'm glad I get to, Dallas is my second home. And I'm glad I get to go back home, to work with them. And stuff, so.
That's cool. And I like that you just have like different kind of spots on the map where you've inhabited and stuff.
Yeah.
To have started a conversation with someone I never met before, and I had very little information about anything that you do, and this is why I love doing this podcast, because usually I'll talk to people I have some kind of history with too, but it was just such a treat to be able to pretty much start from scratch and like have this conversation, because you've had an incredibly interesting life up to this point. I mean, all the travels and the experiences, and how that, and on top of the fact that you're a very talented producer too, which is what brought me in the first place. So yeah, thank you, and thanks for doing it, man. I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate it, and just appreciate the opportunity to come in and talk about my music and whatnot.
Oh, for sure. Well, yeah, let's hopefully we'll see much more in the coming years.
Most definitely will.
Cool.
Most definitely will.
Thanks, man. There you go, y'all. That was incredible. I want to thank my guest, Malik Abdul-Rahmaan. If you want to check out this dude's material, then first seek out the Field Research Malaysia tape. And it's on iTunes as well. I just looked. If you need like another resource for his music, though, it is on SoundCloud /Malik Abdul-Rahmaan, RAHMAAN. So if it's your first time really learning about this dude, you want to check it out. If you're a fan of sample-based, composition-based, instrumental hip-hop stuff, obviously from the school of Madlib and Dilla. But, you know, when I first listened to his material for the very first time, it actually reminded me a lot of Satch from the Knots, his post-Knots work. And if you're like a head or a follower of that stuff, if you will, that's what first grabbed me. It sort of reminded me of that. Really dusty loops and just a cool, soulful, kind of broken beat approach to loops and breaks and shit like that. You know, everyone interprets it differently, but yeah, peep out that SoundCloud and really check out those two labels that he has been releasing stuff on. One is Paxico Records, Paxico, and then my man JT Donaldson down in Dallas, Texas, with New Math Records. So, yeah, hopefully I put you up on something, or if you're a fan of Malik's music, or if you know him from the scene and from A1, then this is a good peek into his life, because, I mean, some of those conversations and that story, and just living in Japan, but, I mean, come on, in Iraq, like, at Camp Buka, it's just uncanny, unreal. I was really in awe when he was describing that, and it just transcends any kind of talk about, you know, records and all that. It's just on such a human level, it's so unbelievably real. So hopefully this kind of painted an interesting picture of just a human being, a dude that loves music, and that music helped get him through a lot of stuff in his life. So thank you guys for checking it out. Every episode is edited and engineered by CJ Stewart. My name is Peter Agast. I'm the host and producer of the show. If you are listening for the first time, again, please feel free to share it on SoundCloud. I'm on Twitter. I'll post it on Twitter @HouselistPod. So retweet it there. Just want to get the word out. That's the way that's all I can ask of you guys. So if you dug it, feel free to just copy and paste it, put it on a blog, send it to your friend, word of mouth. If you're up at a club, be like, yo, man, you know, Malik, you like his music, check out this interview he did on this podcast. It's called The House List by Peter Agostin. Yeah, you know Peter Agostin, right? That dude. Yeah, that's all. So I'm going to let one of these tracks from the album from Field Research Malaysia take us out here. So let's see, which one am I gonna ride to, because I like a lot of them, and it's really like an album you should check out in its entirety. Really, it's something to like really vibe out to, because it's a lot of tracks. This one's called Street Food. So I'm gonna ride out this episode 39 of The House List. Thank you, y'all. Peace, and I will see you next episode.